It was Christmas Eve and I was home alone. The snow had been falling steadily since afternoon, blanketing the quiet suburban streets in a pristine white. I had the TV on for background noise, the soft hum of old Christmas specials playing while I wrapped the last of the presents. It was supposed to be a peaceful night, a rare moment of solitude. My family would join me the next morning for breakfast and the chaos of gift opening. That's why I couldn't explain the knock at the door. It wasn't loud, just a light tap, tap, tap against the wood. My first thought was the wind brushing a branch against the house. But then it came again, louder this time. I froze, scissors in hand, staring at the shadowy outline of the door across the living room. It wasn't even 10 p.m., and I wasn't expecting anyone. Probably a neighbor, I muttered to myself, though I didn't believe it. Nobody in the neighborhood would stop by unannounced on Christmas Eve. I got up and walked to the door, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. The old house groaned with every shift in temperature, the way it always did in the winter. I paused by the door, my hand hovering over the handle, and peered through the peephole. The porch light barely illuminated a figure standing on the other side. I could only make out the outline of a tall, broad-shouldered man. He wasn't moving, just standing there. "Can I help you?" I called through the door. Silence. A trickle of unease ran down my spine. "If you're lost or need directions, I can call someone for you." I tried again, my voice less steady this time. Still no response. I was about to step away, chalking it up to some Christmas prank, when the man moved. He didn't lean into the peephole or try to explain himself. Instead, he raised a hand, and I realized he was holding something. Parcel. A red and green box wrapped with gold ribbon. Something about the way he held it made my stomach churn. He wasn't offering it to me. He was just showing it. The knocking resumed, but it wasn't coming from the door anymore. It was from the window on the side of the house. My head snapped toward the noise, and then I heard it again. Knocking. At the back door. They weren't heavy bangs, just soft, deliberate taps. Like the sound you make when you're trying not to wake someone. I stepped back, my heart pounding, and grabbed my phone from the coffee table. My hands trembled as I punched in 911, but when I pressed call, nothing happened. No dial tone. No signal. My Wi-Fi was out too. The knocking from the front door stopped. I pressed myself against the wall, breathing shallowly, straining to listen. The house was silent again. Too silent. Even the creaks and groans of the old would seem to have disappeared. And then crunch. The unmistakable sound of footsteps in the snow outside the living room window. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. I forced myself to peek through the curtains, keeping as much of my face hidden as I could. The porch was empty. The man was gone. But the box he'd been holding wasn't. It sat on the welcome mat, looking innocent and festive. Too festive. I should have called the police then and there. But something about the box, about the deliberate way he'd shown it to me, made my skin crawl. I wasn't going outside. Not for anything. The sound of shuffling footsteps came again, this time from above me. From the roof. Whoever or whatever it wasn't trying to hide anymore. The sound of footsteps on the roof made my blood run cold. They were slow, deliberate, like whoever was up there was taking their time. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, gripping my phone uselessly. The signal was still dead, and every instinct screamed at me to hide. But where? The house wasn't big, and every room seemed to have a window or door that could be watched or worse, breached. The attic was too exposed, the basement too obvious. I moved to the kitchen, my socks silent against the hardwood, and grabbed the biggest knife I could find from the block. A loud thud echoed from above, as if something heavy had been dropped onto the roof. I flinched, clenching the knife tighter. Then another sound, a dragging noise, like something was being pulled across the shingles. I backed away, my eyes darting to every window. The box on the porch was still there, sitting untouched in the snow. A gust of wind howled through the night, rattling the windows and sending a shiver down my spine. For a moment, I thought the noises might have been the storm playing tricks on me. And then the dragging sound stopped. Suddenly, the house went eerily quiet again. I strained my ears, listening for any hint of movement. The silence stretched, growing heavier with each passing second. Tap, tap, tap. The knocking was back, but this time it came from the chimney. Couldn't breathe. My legs felt rooted to the floor, my body paralyzed by a fear so primal I couldn't think straight. The sound wasn't heavy or aggressive. It was patient. Like whatever was making it knew I wasn't going anywhere. I forced myself to move, retreating into the hallway. The lights flickered once, then went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. My breathing quickened, the sound of my own heartbeat filling my ears. I needed to leave. Staying was suicide. I grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door, but as I reached for the knob, something made me stop. A faint whisper, so quiet I almost thought I'd imagined it. "Don't leave." I spun around, pressing my back against the door, knife held in front of me like it would actually help. The voice hadn't come from the chimney or the roof. It had come from inside the house. The whisper echoed in my ears, soft but sinister, cutting through the icy silence of the house. "Don't leave." My grip on the knife tightened, the cold steel trembling in my hand. I scanned the darkness, my eyes darting from shadow to shadow. The soft glow of the snow outside illuminated the edges of the windows, but it only made the blackness inside the house feel thicker. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. No response, just silence. And then, the front door creaked behind me. Not a knock this time, a slow, deliberate creak. I turned, my heart hammering in my chest. The door hadn't opened all the way, just a crack, but it was enough to send a gust of icy air swirling into the house. My eyes flicked to the porch, to the box that was still sitting there. The golden ribbon on top gleamed faintly under the porch light. Then, ever so slightly, the lid began to lift. "Nope," I muttered under my breath, backing away. My legs felt heavy, like they didn't want to move, but I forced them to carry me down the hallway toward the back door. Whatever was out there, or in here, I wasn't sticking around to find out. I didn't make it far. As I reached the kitchen, a sound stopped me dead in my tracks. It wasn't footsteps this time. It was laughter, soft at first like a child giggling. It came from the living room, faint and echoing, as if the sound itself didn't belong in the real world. My stomach churned as the giggle deepened, growing louder and more distorted, until it sounded like multiple voices laughing together. I turned to look, and my breath caught in my throat. The box was inside the house. It sat in the middle of the living room floor, its gold ribbon shimmering in the faint light from the window. I was certain I'd seen it on the porch just seconds ago. But now here it was, closer, waiting. The lid was off. Something inside the box moved. I couldn't see what it was at first, just a faint, shifting shadow against the crimson lining. The laughter grew louder, more guttural, like a chorus of voices mocking me. My legs threatened to buckle, but I didn't dare look away. Then, with a sudden burst of motion, the shadow inside the box unfolded. It was a hand, not human, too long, too spindly, with fingers that bent the wrong way. The skin was pale and translucent, stretched taut over what looked like black veins. The hand gripped the edge of the box, pulling the rest of the figure into view. It crawled out slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the moment. Its body was grotesque, a twisted amalgamation of limbs and angles that didn't belong. Its head was featureless, save for a wide, crooked grin that seemed to stretch across its entire face. "Why are you alone?" the thing crooned, its voice slithering into my ears like oil. I stumbled backward, my mind screaming at me to run, but my body wouldn't obey. The thing moved closer, dragging itself across the floor in unnatural jerks. Its grin widened, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "You shouldn't be alone on Christmas," it hissed. The thing slithered closer, its twisted body contorting unnaturally as it pulled itself across the floor. The sound of its movements, a sickening mix of wet smacks and scraping claws, sent waves of nausea through me. Its grin never faltered, those jagged teeth gleaming even in the faint light. "Stay," it whispered, its voice deep and resonant, like a chorus of voices speaking through a hollow void. We can celebrate together. I took a shaky step back, gripping the knife so hard my knuckles turned white. My mind raced. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but the thing was between me and the front door. The back door was my only chance. Stay. It hissed again, dragging itself upright. Its limbs jutted at impossible angles, the long fingers twitching like they had a mind of their own. It's safer here with me. I bolted. The kitchen blurred as I ran, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I could hear it behind me, the sickening sound of its pursuit, a chaotic rhythm of dragging and scraping. The back door loomed ahead, but as I reached for the handle, it stopped me. Not physically. The house fell silent, and in that moment of stillness, I heard it again. Laughter. Not from behind me this time, but all around. It echoed through the house, filling every corner, growing louder until it drowned out the sound of my own breathing. I froze, clutching the knife, my heart thundering in my chest. Then the lights came back on. Every bulb in the house blazed to life, flooding the kitchen with blinding light. I blinked, disoriented, and turned to see the creature standing in the middle of the room. It was taller now, its body stretched impossibly thin, its grin impossibly wide. Its head tilted as it regarded me, the crooked teeth parting slightly as if it was amused. "You don't get it, do you?" it said, its voice dripping with mockery. "You invited me in." "What?" The word barely escaped my lips. "The moment you opened the door," it said, taking a slow, deliberate step toward me. "The moment you let the cold air inside. You let me inside." I stumbled back, my mind racing. I hadn't opened the door. I'd only the porch, the box. My stomach dropped as the realization hit me. I hadn't opened the door, but I'd looked out. I'd acknowledged it. "That's all it takes," the thing said, its voice a whisper now. "Just one moment of weakness. One moment of recognition." I felt my back hit the door. The cold metal of the handle pressed into my hand, and I knew I had one chance. I turned, yanking the door open, and sprinted into the snow. The cold air burned my lungs as I ran, my socks sinking into the fresh powder with every step. Behind me, the house groaned, an unnatural sound, like wood and nails twisting in protest. I didn't look back, not until I was halfway down the street. When I turned, the house was dark again, silent. The front door was shut, and the porch light flickered weakly, casting faint shadows across the snow. The box was gone. I never went back. I spent the rest of that Christmas Eve huddled in my car at the gas station a mile down the road, engine running, lights on, doors locked. When morning came, I called the police, but when they checked the house, they found nothing out of the ordinary. No signs of forced entry, no footprints in the snow, no box. I sold the place a month later. I never told my family what happened, and I haven't spent a single Christmas Eve alone since. But sometimes, late at night, when the snow falls and the house is quiet, I swear I can still hear it.